Alright, so after going through a fiasco, a period of great enmity with this computer, having to deal with iMovie, I decided to move over to OBS technology, um, which is just a different video recorder. But now that I'm all set, here we go. So, this is an introduction to this forum, this medium of recording video and spreading it around. And why not? It seems like a great way to spread your message, spread whatever way you love. And it comes at a great time. So my partner Danica, or Danielle, or Janet even, depending on the day, because it's not that I'm a Lothario type, it's that she has many aliases. My partner and I are having a child, and it's due in about 3.5 months. And I want to bring her into the world, into the earth, in a way that she feels calm, happy, and excited for the adventures that life has to offer. And note, the reason I said earth and changed from the world is because I think of the world as the human interpretation of commodification and society and the interaction of humanity with the planet or Earth as the world. And Earth itself is the environment that exists divorced from any man-made conceptions or technology. The Earth is inherently glorious and beautiful, and I personally believe the world is getting pretty toxic. And this has to do with something that's always been around even since I was a child. And I want to address this first so I can get on to the good stuff later on. So I figure we start dark and then we go into the light, right? Seems like a nice hero's journey. So, growing up, I mean, like any American man, any American child, I was exposed, any American child in the late 20th century, going into the 21st century, I was exposed to media galore, and I still am exposed to media galore, and it's become suffocating, to the point where it's hard to even find nature amid all these man-made things, and oftentimes I find them to be superfluous to an intelligible life. But I digress. I was exposed to Hollywood and video games, and where I often found solace was in reading, because you can take your time and create your own scene in your head. Now, what I've come to find, and what I knew early on and have essentially expanded upon through reading and understanding, is that mainstream media is straight up garbage. Now, what I mean by this is it's centered on proliferating negative values. It goes for the lowest base denominator of rationale, and it exacerbates things that otherwise would not be a problem. From a very basic standpoint, we can start on the constructs of the mainstream media. So one construct is race. If you look at an election, for instance, a presidential election, prime minister election, they'll often go into demographics, and they'll say, this community voted this way, this community voted this way. The demographics can be gendered, demographics can be religion-based, the demographics can be racial. And all of these are harmful. I don't think they help anybody sleep at night. I think all it does is create division. And that's the central theme of what mainstream media is. It's division. And even from a young age, when I watch the news and I recognize that the majority of what they show is somebody died, somebody got in an accident, Twin Towers fell down in 2001. Essentially, they give you information that's going to rile you up, and they're looking to elicit some sort of emotional response. And I think it is imperative, it is telling that I mentioned that event, because in 2001, that's when, quote unquote, the New World Order was enacted, but in reality, it's been going on for a very long time. Now, when I was 8 years old, and I saw the broadcast on TV, it was after the fact, because the towers had fallen in the morning. I was at school, and then I went home, and then it was all over the news for the next, weeks, months, probably the rest of the year. But even from the outset, the hysteria surrounding it, obviously people died, which is pretty sad, but the hysteria surrounding it, and the story itself of two jetliners flying into a building and it collapsing in the way that it did, made very little sense to me. And I questioned it immediately, as I knew through reading and through understanding the world, you are supposed to question everything. And what I've found is that the mainstream media lies about everything. They don't mess around. It's all a big heap of garbage. And this is the kind of toxic culture we live in, where our main source of information is inherently corrupted. And it's given to us by a script, meaning that this 9/11 was in fact planned. There's scripting in television shows like The Simpsons, where in a 1997 episode, the family goes to New York, and I believe it's Bart, might be Lisa, but one of the two, I think it's Bart, shows them a magazine of New York, and it costs, I think, $9, and it's right next to the Twin Towers, which make an 11. And you may not think of anything of that, but there was a lot of programming going into that day. In the world of video games, you had this huge game, Majora's Mask, where the world was going to end, right? Like the moon's falling to Earth. And that might be a long stretch, but the Twin Towers have this constant connectivity with the moon. Now, I don't want to go too long on this Twin Towers element, this Twin Towers piece. I'll plan on writing something about it, or talking about it at a later date, but I just want to reference it as a point where I really saw a lot of the corruption and the lying take hold, and then I decided from that young age that I didn't want to pay too close attention to the news. And this might have been to my chagrin, because then I'd be able to have more easily figured out how they codify these things. I only would find that out this year. But part of the news you have to recognize is that everybody has an agenda. And what's the news agenda? The mainstream media is the big overarching U.S. government, big overarching world government agenda, who control and script everything that's going on in our mainstream media, mainstream news. So, that might be a lot to take for some people that follow it vigilantly, but I honestly feel that's the case. There's too much codified evidence. You can look into how they codify news stories with the Kabbalistic practice of gematria. Kabbalism is originally a Judaism practice. And you'll see that they codify everything by this code. If you look into anything involved with the government, basically everything is 47. Democrat, Republican, government itself equals out to 47. White House is 47, and so forth. And what I mean by saying equals 47 is, if you numerically codify all of the alphabetical letters, A would equal 1, and all the way up to Z equals 26. And then you place those letters in those words and then count those numbers and come out with an answer. It equals 47 in that either that English ordinal method or the single reduction method, which is where no value can be over one digit. They're all single digits. So it goes 1 through 9, first 9 letters, second 9 letters, 1 through 9 again, starts over from 1 through 9. And then the third 8 letters go 1 through 8. And then you have reverse ordinal, which is the reverse of the original, which is where z equals 1 and a equals 26. And then reverse reduction, where, again, z equals 1, and then you count up to 9, going backwards alphabet, count to 9 again, backwards alphabet, and then finally finish up with the final 8. So using this code, these basic ciphers, these basic 4 ciphers, you can easily determine why certain words get quote marks over them on certain dates, and why it happens the way it does is because it's all a big farce. And it's meant to do what? To outrage people, to take their emotion, to bring them into this, this rage, this angst. And, again, I will go into depth with gematria later on. A person that you can check out, who's done a lot of work with it, in no way am I, affiliated with him. I never met him. I just enjoy his work. Is a certain Zachary Hubbard. He does work on YouTube, and many of his channels have been brought down. He's actually on his 20th channel, I think, as I last checked, because he's delivering this information. He gets the news stories, and then he just goes over them numerically and what words codify with what, and how it's all seemingly scripted, obviously scripted. So, the year 2020, right? 2020 vision. It's almost as if everybody's going to be made aware of the reality of the situation, right? But then you have to feel that, we're given a false reality from the get-go. The only reason we're in 2020 is because we go by the Gregorian calendar, and this Gregory is an ancient monarch, egotistical man, which is what you're going to find throughout our history, is these egotistical men that put themselves front and center and make society go around their name or something that they created, which may not make sense with the natural environment, and it's all done to create a false paradigm. So one of the biggest false paradigms that I have found, there's many, but one of the biggest ones is the fact that our planet's actually flat. You can do research on this. Eric Dubé is a phenomenal character. He's provided many books and audio and all this stuff. But the basis being is that, what do you feel? Do you feel like you're moving? Do you feel like you're moving 1,000 miles per hour like they told you in class? Do you feel like the Earth's spinning around? Do you feel like gravity's acting upon you and keeping you down, or do you feel like there's density and different objects have density? Balloons rise up in the air and bricks fall down because they have different density. Balloons are lighter than the air has a specific density, and bricks are heavier than the air, and they have a specific density that actually allows them to fall. It's not this universal force of gravity which acts on everything in the same manner. Now, this is further proven by the fact that if we were outside of the planet, which is what's told to us from a young age, especially in public schools, we're outside, on the outside of the planet, then we would be floating away. How they make up for this is they say we have an atmosphere that holds us in, and there is essentially an atmosphere, a stratosphere, a mesosphere, and then that creates a sort of a dome, if you would, that contains all this air and maintains this law of gravity. And then once you get out of it, then you'd be floating in space. But then all of those rocket missions, which are out of the 1969 lunar mission that was supposed, it's outside of that air density. So flying into space or rocket propelling into space would make no sense because there's nothing for the rocket to actually move off of. The reason birds fly is because air has density. They can actually move off the air. If you're moving off space, you're going to move like a gyroscope and just spin around. Kind of like a lot of those videos that are around, CGI videos they show of satellites spinning and so forth. So Yeah, it's hard for me to really find any clear evidence that we actually went to the moon. It looks very fake to me, and the fact that we haven't been back there since 1969 is highly suspect. Apparently, China went back there, but there's literally one photo on NASA. NASA also means deception in Hebrew. You can look into that. And as you're getting into, it's pretty obvious who's creating all these diversions, especially when you know that 96% of our media is ran by people that identify with a certain religion, and this certain religion has a text that states that anybody outside of that religion may be deceived by those within the religion. It also states that if one within the religion kills someone who's not within the religion, the only penalty is to be punched, or not even penalized whatsoever. And vice versa, if someone within the religion punches somebody else outside of the religion, that penalty, or sorry, if someone outside of the religion punches somebody within the religion, then they can get they're ordered to be killed by this book. So I'm sick of laboring around this. It's the Jews. It's a very specific type, the ones that actually read the Talmud as if it's the reality. The Talmud's the book I was referring to, and yeah, they've hijacked Hollywood. I referenced that earlier. They started Hollywood. They make propaganda films, and they've created this paradigm that many people live within and don't even think about, don't question, and just live their whole lives out, believing everything they read in the papers and on TV, because you can't speak out against this stuff or else you'll be damned. So what this boils down to is religion came after humanity, right? I have no problem with the average person. I actually used to date a Jewish girl, and she still believes the Holocaust happened and believes everything's all right and there's no lying going on, and that's fine. She can live in that paradigm, but I'm done with that paradigm because I've seen evidence that it's horse and shit. So, I have no real problem with religion. I just want to be away from it because I think it's toxic. So it's hard, there's a little bit of hypocrisy in that statement because I'm saying it's toxic, but I have no problem with it. If you want to celebrate your religion and do your thing, have your celebration, fine. Don't involve anybody else. Don't ostracize other people, and just do what you got to do. Especially don't claim yourself as God's children and have that egotistical mindset from the basis. So basically what I'm trying to get at is we have a cosmological problem on the playground, right? If you think of the universe of minds as a grand playground, like you can imagine the scene where as a child you played with kids and you hung out with them. Maybe it wasn't, an American playground. Maybe it was, just a place outside, a field, something like that. But anyways, this scape, this scenery, the scene where you have all these people getting together, gathering together. And what you had is at some point you had somebody isolate themselves, only allow a few people in, write a book about it, and say all others are less than, we are God's children. That's why religion is corrupt. It wouldn't be if it was just considered fictional from the get-go, and you celebrated it, and you had fun with it. But the fact is, people take this shit seriously, and they ostracize people who aren't part of their religion because of it. And that's not to say that other Abrahamic religions are innocent. Christianity is riddled in contradiction. The New Testament remedies a lot of what the Old Testament says, just like the Torah remedies a lot of what the Talmud says in Judaism. The Quran is another exclusionary, God only sees our people kind of religion. They're all bunk, okay? I'm done with them. And I know this is something that a lot of people in our time recognize, is that these are ludicrous and these are holding us back, and they've made up wars, and it's just another divide and conquer strategy by those on top. Those on top know they're all bullshit, come from the lineage that created these stupid books, and then they are just laughing their asses off as these people fight with these people, and it's just a bunch of horse hooey, right? Now what I'm saying is you shouldn't adopt the nihilistic scientism of globe loving, and the scientists are our new religious philosophers. No, they are not. They don't deserve any of that credit. That credit, because they're putting out lies, and they say that it's factual, but the reality is it's theoretical physics, and theoretical physics has no basis. It's loose. It's like someone spitting off the tongue, and there's not a lot on that. There's not a lot to there's not a lot of substance to it. So, coming around to it, in introducing my daughter to the planet, I have to tell her that she's born into a world where there's much, much deception. An earth that is beautiful, inherently glorious, and loving, but a world that is built on deception. And this all stems back 7,000 years ago when we began worshiping the sun, hence heliocentrism, which is the sun at the center of the universe, which is just not true. If you actually look outside, the sun is about the same size as the moon. It's as you see it, and they appear more like disks than they do like spheres, as they're claimed to look. NASA also claims to have footage of the sun, and it's 93 million miles away. If you use that code gematria, 93 equals propaganda. It's a lot. But the idea is that you should continue to question everything, no matter what your beliefs are. And I feel pretty confident in my beliefs, more confident than I did when I was fed toxic beliefs from the government. The government wants you to think that you don't matter, that you're spinning on a rock hurtling in space, doing 1,000 miles per hour on rotation, 66,000 miles per hour orbit, and then I think like 625,000 miles per hour away from the Big Bang. It's just horseshit. It's nonsense. It doesn't even make any sense. It's easy to drop, and yeah, I'm happy that I'm beyond it. It means that we have a lot more time. It means that our ideas of death are bullshit, and or at least the ones that we were fed are bullshit, and that our lives do matter, and we're at the center because Earth equals heart if you anagram that shit. So back to that, knowing that the Earth equals heart, no matter what they do, no matter what distractions they play, they're always in the losing side. It might look like there's elites that have tons of money, but it's a made-up system. Money's made up. It's a dude on a dollar bill. It's a dude who was a president that was selected, not elected, on a dollar bill that people value because they need more material objects in their life and they need to afford food. Food should be free. Food should be exchanged. You should have the material objects outside of that. That's the currency that I want. I want the currency that says all the essentials are free. We just exchange them. We encourage gardening. But you know why we don't do that? It's because we give out a shitty food pyramid when I was young, where grains were the main base, and meat and seafood were just as important as fruit and vegetables. And nowadays they've updated it, so now that's a 4-part pie chart, and you get fruit, vegetables, grains, and protein, which is what people say when they don't know anything about nutrition. Oh, I need more protein, that's why I eat meat. You don't know shit about nutrition. Where do you think those animals get protein from? Where do you think they get them from? Where do they get protein from? The fruit and vegetables they eat. Yeah. So where does the protein come from? What's the source? The fruit and vegetables. It's pretty obvious. Also, look at your teeth, fuckface. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, these people these days. And I know, maybe I'm a privileged little fuck, and I'm just privy to knowledge because I've had a lot of support my whole life. And I'm appreciative of that. But seeing people kill themselves, seeing people break down and get really obese and get pale and just become shells of themselves and what they can be, it's sickening to me. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of watching people eat fried food, microwave and everything, and living like you're about to go off to Mars, because there is no Mars. Mars is a star. It's just, and this is turning into a rant video, but fuck it, like, it's just off the cuff, off the chest. Like, I'm sick of that. I'm sick of that behavior. I'm sick of people making excuses for their awful decisions. And it's hard to live. It's hard to make a living. I don't have a standard occupation because I don't want to work for people that do dumb things. There's a lot of good things going on, but I have my own business now because why would I want any part of some authoritarian hierarchy when authority is inherently messed up? You don't need authority. You need somebody that can teach you things. The teacher is not necessarily authority. The teacher is somebody who teaches you things. You don't have to equate the two, and I think that's what our society does. It likes to conflate them and then make you want to work for the man, which is what the education system is. It's more so than what you're learning. It's teaching you how to work for someone else instead of having your own creativity, making your own ideas. You're just being taught to follow, get in line, do what they're doing, go to Disney World, eat cheeseburgers, believe in the globe, and love Star Wars because Star Wars is the best. It's just Star Wars is a shit movie. Series, I should say. You might like it. You might think it's interesting. There's aspects of it. I know people put a lot of time into it. People put a lot of love into it. I see that. There's good aspects to Star Wars. The acting is dreadful. I'm not going to get past that. Most of it's CGI. The older movies are better than the newer ones. And it's just a boring film, and it's based on a false paradigm. And what's it supposed to do? Get kids excited for this paradigm of the globe and throw the globe at everybody's face. So yeah, I have a lot of toxic shit in me. Obviously, I got to get this stuff out and purge it. That's why I'm doing it before I have my child. I'm getting off base a little bit. So now, to purge through all that darkness, that blackness stuff, I'll address at a later date, just to help people see through all the nonsense. The Earth, right? The Earth is center, right? And I think the Earth is center when you recognize that we create our own realities. We are beautiful. We have a place. We are the heart, and there is a creator. But we would be asinine to give the creator a gender. There's no reason to do that. It makes absolutely no sense. And frankly, it is arrogant to make the creator a person. Because that's what we've done. We've made the creator equal to a person. And that's ridiculous. That's a lie. And it makes people go batshit crazy and do things they don't like and feel enslaved. And it's not the kind of life that's healthy for anybody to live. So that's the kind of world that I'm bringing my daughter to. One where we call out the horse shit and learn cool things about nature. Learn about why samaras fall off maple trees and why they're there in the first place. Learn about how dolphins communicate with people, with other dolphins. Learn why we have zoos and how we can better that whole system and make them into sanctuaries, or maybe go out into their environment instead of having them pushed into ours. And treat the world like a sanctuary as opposed to a theme park, because that's what it feels like. We have asphalt roads that are compressing grass, and we could easily make road systems that go above the highest mammal, the tallest mammal. So the tallest mammal in America would be the bear or the moose in like the northernmost regions, I suppose. So we would make all of our roads go above that. And yeah, that would be a lot of infrastructure change. But what does it do? It puts our planet at center. It puts the Earth at center as opposed to the people. And that's the idea. Those are the basic concepts I want to relay to my child, is that the Earth's at center and people are a part of it. We're one of the species, and every species has integral qualities that we ought to enjoy and respect and love and try to understand. Because to think that I am any more important than an acorn, to think that I am any more important than a ladybug, to think that I'm any more important than a fox, a ferret, a frog, you're lost. You're lost. Just because things communicate differently than we do doesn't mean that they're worse than us. Sure, it makes sense to care for ourselves first. I think that's fine. Like, we should care for people. You should. But to put us on a higher moral plane, to say we have a soul and a germ doesn't, crazy. It's crazy. And once you recognize that, once you realize that, you can do anything, and you don't have any guilt because you're inherently going to be vegan, and you're going to step lightly, you're going to look healthy, you're going to think clearly, and you're going to be happy. And the difficulties arise when you have to interact with the environment that you're in, because the environment that you're in has been so heavily modified by man and its selfishness, so that the most artistically beautiful buildings in the average town are the centers of demon worship, which are our religions, instead of our gardens. I mean, there are certain places around the world that have this, but if I'm looking at the average American suburb, or the average suburb in general across the planet, it looks like garbage. Why? Because we have a capitalistic system that's inherently corrupt and just falling flat. And the way we change it is with your currency. Because what is currency? Your current, like your oceanic current in the sea. So our currency is a piece of paper. We have to kill trees for it to pay for crap. Oftentimes crap. I know people who value their cable package over the food they eat. That's the world we live in today. And who value their internet over the food they eat. That's the world we live in today. Once you recognize that, once you realize that that is a crock of shit, then you don't have to worry about having 8 million cars and a boat and a home on the coast and all this. Because it's all of our home. Your property's an illusion. It's all fake. It's all made to make people feel inflexible, contained. You know, when you look at a fish in a bowl, you might feel empathy for them. You might think, man, that's some sort of living, to be all alone in a bowl your whole life. Are you really that different in a house? Are you really that different when you're driving in a car? When you visit a country and you go on a tour and they give you the superficial glossing over the most your style of tour. It's sad. People think that we're at this technological opus. We're at the bottom. We need to rise up and emphasize plants, emphasize compassion, and get rid of these antiquated structures that have brought us slavery. And my daughter is part of that movement. I'm part of that movement. And we're all connected in that movement if you so choose to be part of it. And the only way you can be part of it is if you speak up and you realize where your heart is. If your heart is on guns, divide, you're never going to get it. You think violence is sexy, you're never going to get it. You eat your food and you don't think about where it comes from, you're never going to get it. And I'm enslaved to this system too. Just because I'm vegan doesn't put me on some higher moral standing than anything else on this planet. Nothing. I intend to grow vegetables and fruit galore once I finally have space to do so. I don't right now. I will soon. plan to do it. Ultimately, I want to be self-sufficient with the help of my friends. So really, there's no such thing as self-sufficiency when I think about it. Because if we're all exchanging fruits and vegetables, then we don't have to rely upon a government. Government, the root words are to rule, govern, your mind, to rule mind, government, mental, to rule the mental, to rule the mind. We need sovereignty. We've been sovereign before. We can be sovereign again. We can use the internet as a tool to achieve this sovereignty pretty easily. But it starts with recognizing healthy habits, healthy friendships, and removing unnecessary fear from your life, a la the news and all of this fear porn that exists out in the world today. Because they don't do 10% of what they say they do on the news. They don't do any of that stuff. That's all show to keep people bogged down and dumb and angry and antsy and racially divided and all this stuff that's made up to keep you apart from your sisters and brothers. Not to mention their androgyne, transgender movement. Now, a lot of people will give me flack for this, but let's go with it. The anima and the animus are the feminine and masculine parts of your soul. It's a way of thinking about it. It's not a literal thing. But I can say that I have feminine aspects to myself, and I can say I have masculine aspects to myself. I like lifting things and throwing things and being strong. That's the masculine aspect, right? And I also like doing intricate work, like gardening, or even within mediums. I'm just noticing, it's obvious. Like I'm not just noticing this right now. Within a medium of gardening, you have intricate things that you're doing, and you have more robust elements to it. For instance, the more robust would be using a shovel to move soil and sift soil around, and the more intricate would be placing seeds. Now, again, I just call them masculine and feminine, so to come to a simple terminology, but in reality, it's all human. We even had to make a difference between masculine and feminine. But back to the transgender thing. What it does is it says, my body as it currently is, as it was made to be, is not how I feel. I don't feel comfortable in this body. And the reason you don't feel comfortable in this body is because of the information that you're intaking from outside of that body. You're not listening to yourself and saying, I'm beautiful the way I am. So what you have is you have people that worship another fake god, Satan, the devil, if you will, who has no gender, is right in the middle, an androgyne. And the androgyne problem is that they cannot reproduce. So if we were all androgynes, the human race would effectively die out. So hence Satanism. It's the idea that humanity's corrupt, evil, and we should all worship a god that is in between, because that's the ideal. And you have many, virtually every celebrity you can possibly think of on the television promoting this. Because the television is made to poison you. Lie, vision. So what do? How do you get beyond this? You discern more closely. There's good documentaries. There's good things on the internet. There's great books. But you have to discern if it's helpful information or if it's meant to make you accept something that you don't like, or maybe is toxic to the environment, like transgenderism or pedophilia or something of that nature. Excuse me. realizing this, you grow as a person. Because you're able to sift through all this and choose what truly embodies you and truly propels you forward. It makes you feel confident in everything you do. So, the cool thing about my child is, unlike my relationship with my parents, where they basically had no questions about the mainstream, thought everything goes, have fun with it, I'm going to tell her that there's things that she should question from day one. They never did that. And I think every good friend, every good parent is on that. Every good person is on that mentality of question absolutely everything. Now, there's a need for fluidity, there's a need for rhythm, but to blindly accept whatever you hear, whatever you read is obviously ridiculous. That means that everything I just said could have been horseshit from the get-go. But I know the basis of understanding the golden rule, which should be the only law that's actually exhibited by all persons, beings, which is do unto others as you would like them to do to you. And questioning everything, the world is wide open. If you accept basic things and commercialized and plastic lifestyles, the world is hell. And hell's a concept, but it makes sense. It's not fun. It's riddled in vanity. So, moving forward, active discernment is key. Love is key. Finding the light in every single person is the center. Thank you, and